welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about, is a calorie a calorie? And this is something that I think a lot of people are confused by. You hear, people saying a calorie of protein from eggs is the same as a calorie of protein from whey protein, or even to the extent of, is a calorie from sugar the same with fruit versus processed sugars and all that. So I want to kind of break it all down for you guys in terms of my thought process and kind of where I have come up with my answer to this, and also kind of talk you through my journey in terms of like what I've learned through the years with just calories in general and health and nutrition and our body, and what I feel is kind of like the missing element in answering this question. So basically, if you would have asked me if a calorie was a calorie 6 or 7 years ago, I would have probably said no, because I strictly bro dieted on healthy foods for shows at that point in time. I ate a lot of lean proteins, lots of veggies, very bro diet is what they call it. And I didn't, I looked at food that was processed and foods that had sugar, or even, things that just tasted good. I knew those were like off-limit foods when I was on my bro diet. So I would have told you no, that a calorie is not a calorie at that point in time. However, I transitioned into more of a macro approach, and if it fits your macros kind of like hit the scene, and I really dove into practicing more of a flexible dieting lifestyle, which helped me a lot in terms of fixing like my binge eating disorder. I was able to look at foods not so black and white, so it helped me a ton in terms of finding balance with nutrition. But I think that a lot of people still take that to an extreme, and they, fit all this crap food into their macros because it fits, and say a calorie is a calorie, so it doesn't matter. So I kind of went that route a little bit, and even to maybe some extreme with that in terms of fitting bad food into my macros at some points in time. That was probably like 2014, 15. I did a lot of like 0 calorie stuff because it was 0 calories, Walden Farm syrups for flavors, just sugar-free things, stuff like that. So I went through that phase for a while, and when I was dealing with infertility, I really started to take more of a holistic approach to healing myself and my body and my hormones, and that's when I started to really research deeper into, the human anatomy and our, biology and what makes us up in terms of our hormonal balance. And, I kind of went more of a holistic route before getting pregnant. I switched over to eating more of a plant-based diet. I worked with a naturopath. I worked with an endocrinologist. So I kind of dove deeper into a holistic approach of eating. And so at that point, I probably started transitioning back to the mindset that a calorie is not a calorie, that, foods from nature and processed foods are completely different. I was very focused on holistic health. And I've kind of continued that mindset into now, present day. So it's been about 2 years that I've kind of been more on like a holistic journey with my personal beliefs on nutrition. And so my answer for you, you're all waiting for an answer, I'm sure, on if a calorie is a calorie, is the following. A calorie can be a calorie in the short term. However, in the long term, a calorie is not a calorie. And I also need you to always ask yourself, when somebody's asking you a question, are you talking about a calorie being a calorie in terms of aesthetics and looks and how that's going to play a part, or are you talking about general health and hormones and the effect a calorie has on that part of our life? Because those are two different things that don't always go hand in hand. So aesthetic wise and hormonal health and actual health, because aesthetics and health don't always go hand in hand, can be two different things. So when you're asking yourself, is a calorie a calorie, you have to also ask yourself, in what manner are we looking at this? So now that we got all that out of the way, my answer again is in the short term. So I want to break this all down for you guys, and so you can understand what I mean by that. So I'm gonna go through a few examples of why in the short term a calorie can be a calorie, but not in the long term. So let's take the example of somebody who consumes a lot of 0-calorie soda, for example, like 0-calorie Coca-Cola, and they consume a couple of those a day. So are those calories, since they're non-existent in the Coca-Cola, going to make them gain weight in the short term or affect them in the short term from a calorie standpoint? Most likely not. It's 0 calories. They're not going to be a caloric surplus from drinking that Coke every day. They probably won't gain weight in the short term. They're not going to see scale weight movement go up because they're not consuming an excess or surplus of calories. Now, in the long term, that's not the case, because diet soda and a lot of diet products in general contain sucralose, Splenda, same thing, lots of artificial sweeteners. And what we need to understand and we need to acknowledge as truth and fact is that artificial sweeteners change our gut microbe. Our gut microbe or microbiome is a forest of bacteria that we have in our gut, and people underestimate how powerful that is. So our gut microbe literally, it affects everything. So it affects your weight, how easy you can lose weight, your personality. They've shown that it actually has a big impact on autism. Autistic kids have a different bacteria in their gut they're finding than non-autistic kids. It goes to the extent of literally making up your personality. So if you have anxiety, if you deal with depression, a lot of that can go back to being linked to the bacteria in your gut. So it's that powerful. So an imbalance of gut bacteria is called dysbiosis, I believe is how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. And basically it just means you have more bad bacteria in your gut than good bacteria. And artificial sweeteners are known to kill bacteria in your gut. So similar to antibiotics, when you take antibiotics, you're wiping out all the good and the bad bacteria in your gut. And that can be very detrimental. That's why a lot of kids who are on antibiotics, like a lot as children, develop a lot of issues when they're older. They've even linked dysbiosis, I think I'm saying that right, back to things like IBS, Crohn's disease, lots of different personality disorders even. So it's that powerful. Our gut bacteria is so important. So if you're consuming these 0-calorie things all the time, they might not be impacting your weight on the scale today or tomorrow, but if you're really serious about being healthy in the long run and you want to, you know, make sure that you're healthy overall, not just aesthetically and looking lean, but healthy internally and at a cellular level, you have to be careful with artificial sweeteners and 0-calorie products. I wish I would have listened to my mom, because my mom, she's very like old school with how she eats. She eats a lot of food, but it's all like, well, most of it's like whole foods, and she's always been like a big advocate of like all the fats, and she's never like restricted, and she's always been in good shape. And she's always been against like artificial additives, and she never knew why she was. She just said that like she didn't have a good feeling about them, and she thought they were cancer causing. And honestly, with all the research now, I should have listened. I thought she was just, you know, old school, but she was right. I definitely believe that it has a bigger impact on our health than most of us realize, and that we need to take this into consideration when thinking about, yeah, you might not be consuming 500 more calories because you're eating 0-calorie foods, but you're also doing damage to your long-term gut health. So really keep that in your mind, because it's really important, and I think people like downplay and underestimate gut health in general. So a Coca-Cola that has Splenda and sucralose in it is going to impact your gut microbe. In the short term, no, it's not going to do much, or you're not going to feel the effects of it doing much. In the long term, however, it will kill good bacteria. It is proven that Splenda, sucralose, all of those nasty artificial sweeteners that are on the market are not good for our gut health. So if you want to lose weight, you do not want to kill your good gut bacteria. And if you're drinking multiple items filled with sucralose and Splenda every day, you're going to do some damage to your gut microbe. And if you believe that that is that powerful, then you need to understand that in the long term, this is not going to help you physically, aesthetically, mentally, emotionally. You want healthy, flourishing, good bacteria in your gut. So that is factual information. It is clear as day if you guys read reports on it, if you do your own research. There are so many research studies now showing that, you know, there's rats that are fed sucralose and rats that are even fed sugar water. So sucralose water and sugar water. And the impact on the rats that have the fake sweeteners in their diet is actually more harmful than even real sugar. And real sugar is not good for us. We know that. But that's how bad fake sugars are in the long term. And again, this was rats. The study that I'm referring to was rats that were fed this for, I believe, 6 months every day. So yes, it took a while for them to see these negative side effects. But again, that's why I'm saying in the long term. And you know, some people are like, well, human beings are not rats. Fine, yes, there's not enough research on human beings. Fake sugars haven't been around all that long for us to really see the huge detrimental impact they have on us. However, there's lots and lots of stats that can be linked back to that. Our, you know, diabetes rates have gone way up, which I think has directly to do with the fact that artificial sweeteners also make us more insulin resistant. So that's a whole nother thing. Insulin resistance comes from artificial sweeteners, and it's been proven. So in the short term, it does not cause an insulin spike because it's not a sugar. So people are like, oh, it's good for diabetes, you know, because it's not going to cause an insulin spike. But it makes you more insulin resistant. So it does impact our health negatively. And I can link all this information in the drop-down box if you guys want to read it for yourself, if you want to watch YouTube videos on what I'm referring to. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I do a lot of independent research because this stuff fascinates me. So now let's talk about, you see a lot on social media, those like side-by-sides of like, would you rather have a 500-calorie Big Mac or a 500-calorie salad? And it's like saying basically like eat the Big Mac because they're the same calories. Those things drive me nuts because they are not the same. Yes, 500 calories in a Big Mac is equivalent in terms of calories to 500 calories of a vegan salad. However, if you believe in the endocrine system, which is your system of glands that secrete hormones and hormone receptors that recept the messengers, you have chemical messengers running through your body. That's what your endocrine system does. Then you have to understand that a Big Mac's 500 calories are going to play a part on your endocrine system in terms of being an endocrine disruptor. An endocrine disruptor is basically a synthetic product that your body receives as a hormone, but it's not a real hormone. So they're mimicking your hormones. So that's kind of how endocrine disruptors work. Is, for example, you probably heard about estrogens or xenoestrogens, which are basically fake estrogens in foods and in facial products and body products and toothpaste and all kinds of things that mimic estrogen. So basically your body believes it's getting an influx of estrogen in the system, but it's not actually creating that estrogen. It's not a natural estrogen in your body, but it acts the same as estrogen in the body. So your receptors are taking that and chemically messaging your brain and your whole body's functions that you have an excess of estrogen in your system. So things like estrogen cause, you know, weight gain. They can throw off your progesterone to estrogen ratio. They can cause infertility, tons of different issues. High estrogen levels are the same reason that men get man boobs, or, you know, you might hear about competitors in the bodybuilding industry coming off steroids and getting like man boobies, and you can see them, and basically that's from an influx of estrogen. So estrogen is very powerful in our bodies, and it's also why women store body fat in the way we do. We have higher estrogen than men, so we have breasts and we have hip fat and, you know, leg fat, and, you know, that's why we're shaped the way we are, because of estrogen. So back to the McDonald's. So if McDonald's food is processed on like conveyor belts, it's wrapped in plastics with BPA. BPA is a known endocrine disruptor. It's flavored with chemicals. All of those are going to be hormone disruptors. So if you're eating 500 calories in a Big Mac, in the short term, is it going to cause you any difference on the scale or any difference in really how you look? Probably not. But in the next couple months, in the next year, if you're eating a Big Mac every day instead of a salad or something natural that does not have endocrine disruptors, is it going to cause an effect? 100%, it is going to affect your hormones. So if you believe that your endocrine system works, and it does because that is how our body stays alive and functions and looks for homeostasis, then you have to understand the fact that you need to take this into consideration when you're asking yourself, is a calorie a calorie? A calorie from a Big Mac and a calorie from a salad, the calories from the Big Mac are going to harm your body. They're going to change your hormones. Your hormones control everything. So if you care about your internal health at the cellular level, then you need to agree that a calorie from a Big Mac is not the same as a calorie from a salad. So 2 valid points so far is fake sugars and Splenda change gut bacteria. They change your insulin response in the long term. Do they do anything in the short term? Not immediately, not something that you're gonna feel. But over time, yes. Well, actually they do something in the short term. They kill good gut bacteria. So you are doing damage, but you're not gonna see it aesthetically. You're not gonna see it physically for a while. 2, calorie from a Big Mac, calorie from salad, not the same because the calorie from a Big Mac changes your hormones. Hormones are important. Hormones are crucial to everything, to weight loss, to having babies, to reproducing, to balance in general. So 2 valid points. Number 3. For those who don't believe in endocrine disruptors, which I don't know if people actually think this is like made up shit, but I'm gonna read this. There's some information straight from WebMD and other reputable sources online, but for your information. This says, endocrine disruptors can cause cancerous tumors, birth defects, and other developmental disorders. Any system in the body controlled by hormones can be derailed by hormone disruptors. Specifically, endocrine disruptors may be associated with the development of learning disabilities, severe attention deficit disorder, so ADHD, cognitive and brain development problems, deformations of the body, breast cancer, prostate cancer, thyroid, and other cancers, sexual development problems such as, I'm not going to go there because that's not relevant. Recently, the Endocrine Society released a statement on endocrine disruption chemicals, specifically listing obesity, diabetes, female reproduction, male reproduction, hormone-sensitive cancers in females, prostate cancer in males, thyroid and neurodevelopment and endocrine system as being affected biologically by being exposed to endocrine disruptive chemicals. So again, like I said, when a Big Mac is processed on a conveyor belt or whatever it is, you know, they use and the chemicals they add to the food to even flavor it. A lot of the scents they add are chemical flavorings and additives. The plastic that the meat's wrapped in, the chemicals that are on the leafy greens on your burger because they're filled with pesticides. Pesticide is a known endocrine disruptor. All of that is going to affect you. So no, 500 calories from a burger is not the same as 500 calories from a salad. So my last point in answering this question is I am a big fan of Dr. Robert Lustig. He's like my ultimate favorite doctor to follow recently. He's an endocrinologist, but he's also in pediatrics. So I love that he's basically a pediatric endocrinologist, which is like 2 of my most passionate different avenues right now because I love children. Obviously, I have a son. I also love the study of hormones, which is endocrinology. So he does both, which is awesome, and he's very passionate and very well spoken. He wrote a book called The Hacking of the American Mind, which I highly suggest that anybody interested in this stuff. He's also wrote a few other books on sugar and the effect it has on children's obesity rates, and just obesity in general in the world. He has proven that basically diabetes and obesity, yes, they're 100% correlated and a lot of times go hand in hand, but not always. And the reason being is there's a lot of like skinny people that have metabolic syndrome. There's a lot of obese people that are actually healthy internally, and it all comes back to the chemical makeup of what they're eating, with fatty liver, which comes from sugar intake. So anyway, fascinating stuff. Totally off topic there. I just love him. I think he is like amazing. If I lived in California, I would like do anything to have him be my son's pediatrician. But he talks about how, you know, we have debunked the fat myth, and basically we were all told that fats are bad, saturated fats are bad, and basically what happened, to make a long story short, is when America decided that fats were bad, we started taking fats out of all of our products on the shelves. And in order to have flavor in food, you either have to have fat or you have to have sugar. So basically we replace all the fat with sugar. So that's why you'll see, you know, zero fat items that have no fat, but they have a lot of sugar. When you have full fat items, they're usually sugar free. So basically when this happened, our obesity rates skyrocketed, disease went up, you know, medical bills went up, you know, everything has gotten worse since this happened because it was basically not accurate, and everyone believed it, and now we are in a crisis because nobody's really come out to fix this problem. And Dr. Robert Lustig is like so far deep into trying to fix this problem at the root of it, but he can't obviously change the world, unfortunately, and this information hasn't gotten out somehow to completely like debunk everybody's feelings about healthy fats and saturated fats and things like coconut oil being good for us. I mean, for the most part, people understand now that fats are good. That's why keto's taken off. However, that doesn't mean that we've understood the role of sugar and how detrimental it can be on our long-term health. So where I'm going with this is he did a study at, I believe it's UCSB is where he teaches at, and they took 40 overweight children and they studied their diets at home, and most of it was full of processed foods and sugars. They replaced these 40 kids' diets with catered meals. So basically these catered meals, they made sure the equivalent of their calorie intake was the exact same. So if they were eating 2,000 calories at home, they were getting a replacement of 2,000 calories from this controlled source of food. And what they did is they just took out the sugars from the items they were giving these children to eat, and they replaced them with still carbohydrates. So it was still starchy carbs, and it wasn't even good carbs. It was things like if they were consuming a muffin for breakfast, they gave them a bagel. So it's not like it was like swapping healthy food even, but they noticed a huge improvement in not only weight loss, but their LDL levels, their fatty liver levels. So basically these kids all had fatty liver disease because that's what contributes to metabolic disease, because the liver is what processes sugar. And these kids had so much sugar in their diet, they were giving them fatty liver disease. So they replaced all of the sugar in their diet with starchy carbohydrates, breads, pasta, like things that were still starchy carbs, but they were not sugar. And they saw a huge improvement in overall health, but their calories remain the same. So that right there should prove to you guys that a calorie is not just a calorie. You know, I think they only did this study for like a few weeks time, and the difference in, you know, all of their, like I said, their cholesterol, their weight, a lot of the kids lost weight, so they even upped their calories, and they gave them even more food, but it wasn't sugar-filled food. And, you know, everybody got healthier anyway, not healthy. It would take a little bit longer than a few weeks to get healthy, but all of their levels improved. All of them, you know, decreased their risk of metabolic disease, diabetes, all of that. So, you know, this study alone proves that a calorie is not a calorie. So that is why I am a big believer in organic foods in not processed foods, keeping you know, sugars low, keeping artificial sweeteners out of your diet. Stevia is not considered in that group of sucralose and Splenda, so you don't have to worry about stevia or monk fruit sweeteners, fine. But you know, all those other, you know, sweet and low, sucralose, Splenda, all that crap is so bad for us. You know, people think they're doing themselves a service by drinking 0-calorie Cokes. You're not. Just have water, guys. I drink sparkling water all the time because I like carbonation, but it's water. So I don't know, I guess I'm really passionate about this because it's taken me a long time to like understand it all and get to here in my personal journey and understanding this and how it plays a role. And you know, a lot of people just want to look at like the short term, but you need to look at the long term if you're serious about your health. You know, and going back to the rat study, they even took gut, you know, microbes from one rat and they put them in another rat. And they took the ones from the overweight rat, they put it in an underweight rat, or you know, normal weight rat, and the normal weight rat gained weight without changing any other factor. So that is how powerful your gut, you know, bacteria is. And that's why we need to understand that if you're serious about weight loss and maintaining your weight, then you have to understand the role that your gut bacteria plays on that. So again, my answer is a calorie, not in the long term, and really not in the short term either. But if you're talking about aesthetics, in the short term perhaps. But if you're talking about overall health at a cellular level and healthy, you know, body, mind, and soul, and balance and hormonal balance and happiness in general, then no, a calorie is not a calorie. I hope you guys enjoyed my video and it wasn't too long and you stuck through it with me. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next one.